Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Patel. Any questions from councillors? As I said, we will be deliberating on this and considering this as a cohesive team in the confidence section. So if there is no questions, I do have a resolution here that I would like to put. Councillor Anderson.
I've just got a question with regards to your written support evidence here. You stated that this you are prudent in this decision, but I'm just interested here in at the end of point 2.1. We agreed that by the 15th of 12th 2010, decision would be made by council. Do you mean council staff or council?
Council.
Okay.
Because we went through the process. Because I had worked in the council before, and attended a lot of meetings like this. I had the time frame. We were told if certain things are lodged by certain dates, it will go to the next process and this. So we worked backwards. We got the consultants in place, and we put a plan in. But as more and more meetings we had encouraged to increase the size of the project. We started off with a 160 square meter building project. We were encouraged to go bigger for the reasons there.
Just a follow-on question to that. At that point in time, what information had you submitted to council? Did they have, for example, an assessment of environmental effects?
No, we had all the layouts and the car parking and all that.
Perhaps I can explain some of these timeframes, and that it's quite usual for an applicant to have a pre-application meeting, and it's quite usual for staff to give their views on a project. And the timeframe that was suggested to Mr. Patel is clearly, to me, based on an assumption that the application would not have required to have been notified, which, given all the positive feedback that Mr. Patel and even when I became involved in the project was receiving, that's consistent with that feedback. So in October and the following weeks, when Mr. Patel was having these meetings, it certainly seems to me that the expectation from council staff and Mr. Patel was that the application would not require notification, and therefore he would have council's decision, which in effect is delegated to staff, prior to that middle of December
Just to
date.
clarify, at that point, no AE had been prepared?
No formal AEE, but there certainly had been a lot of discussion about the effects in terms of parking and traffic movement and building height and scale, etc.
Just out of interest, were you given this advice from council staff in writing, or were they all verbal meetings?
Well,
Yeah, they were all verbal meetings, and it always attended by myself, most of them being myself, Joanne, and Doug from Taupo Planning, plus the council officers, minimum of 2 or 3 of them. So, except for the first meeting, when I investigating in early October, there was a one-to-one meeting between myself and the planner, and any subsequent was multiple on both sides. Okay, and then as I said, I'm in this profession. I had done a lot of experience, and I had no doubt what discussion took place, and I always had my consultants with me.
Okay, the question was written or verbal. They were verbal.
They're verbal.
Councillor Downard.
I was just wondering, Jane, did you give any advice to whether it should have been notified or not?
to Mr. Patel? Well, all the feedback we had was that we were heading towards non-notification. So there was there was no need, if you like, for me to advise Mr. Patel, because he was getting feedback from the council staff. So have I answered your question?
Well, it's just interesting to the council staff come back saying that it was going to be non-notified, and whether your advice to Mr. Patel would have been that it should have been notified.
No, well, in fact, when we had our last meeting with council staff prior to lodging it, the council staff were being positive about a slightly larger building than we actually. It was my advice to Mr. Patel that, notwithstanding that positive feedback from council, we should go with a slightly reduced building and get another car park or 2. So I, in fact, if you like, was being more conservative than council staff about that. I should add, I know there's no council planners here, but
I'm really short of time here today, and I should have let you have your evidence, and I want to go to question time. You need to add more?
I'd just like to respond further to the question that was put, and because there's no council planning staff talking to this item, and it would have been quite helpful, I guess, for you to perhaps have had an opportunity to ask them some questions. But so I can simply say that my understanding is that council staff are not challenging, are not challenging the things that we've
Other than this,
stated. So, it's difficult in the absence of one of the planning team to give you some comments.
So, So I have a resolution here. Is that a hand up, Councillor Mincher?
I was just going to ask Joan, a bit like Mike, that with your experience, then you were quite confident rather than experience saying, have you seen things like before that's going to go further to RMA and things like that? But your experience in this case, you just trusted.
I can say that with my experience at the time that we lodged an application, I had a full expectation that it could be a non-notified process.
Well, could I clarify that? Did you have indications or a commitment?
Well, I think...
Two different words. Some people indicate yeah, but did they commit?
Well, it's always a decision that's made after an application's lodged, but the whole point of a pre-application process is to get feedback from council staff to help you scope an application. So, that's the whole purpose of meeting, and in this case we had 3 or 4 meetings with council planning and engineering staff. So
my question is, did you have a commitment or just indications that it would be non-notified?
Well, no one could make a commitment. We had strong encouragement.
Whose decision at the end of the day is it to go notified or non-notified?
It's council's decision, but as Mr Patel has explained in his statement, he received
evidence on board.
Significant encouragement.
I hope we encourage many, many people to come to Taupo and build many, many things. Any further questions? Because I've got a resolution here that the information from Mrs Lewis and Mr Patel objecting to the cost of the resource consent fees for a superette at 70 Penghanga Street be received. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Mover to Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Johnson. All those in favour? Aye. Thank you. Being almost